nothing is going to fall before God says it's time for it to fall.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, you just have to have a steady head, a steady mindset, and not overreact to these passing things. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't things that are important. You mentioned, the abortion issue. Stopping people from killing innocent human beings at their most vulnerable. That is an absolutely, not only is it a noble cause, but it's a godly cause,
Hmm.
and it's absolutely essential for the health of society. If that is not stood against, if that is not made to be seen for what it is, the repercussions will be that the country will fall into darkness, in darkness that I don't know that we've seen since, maybe the fall of the Roman Empire, that kind
Right.
of a thing.
And it was interesting. There's somebody I'm friends on Facebook. She used to Dad was a pastor. She used to be a great Bible quizzer. Now she's a professed atheist. Raised her daughter as a boy, or lets her daughter be raised as a boy, or now a son, but she's really genetically a girl. And she posted something online right after Trump won. Well, again, my son is unsafe in America, and I'm thinking he's not unsafe. She's not unsafe in America. It's
If he
just that.
doesn't if he doesn't put a bomb under somebody's bus seat, he's fine.
That's right. Yeah, there's nothing to worry about. I mean, just because we want to define gender as two genders according to the sex you were born as, most science and doctors usually do, does not mean we're hateful people. We just choose not to follow the foolishness of this transgendered garbage. But it doesn't mean we're hateful people. And I think, like you had said, it's like the CNN feels evil has won because it's the way it goes, or something like that. And I think, of course, it's yet to be proven what's going to be done in this administration, although I think there's enough people on his cabinet to pay the national debt off. Uh, Enough people on that cabinet that have plenty of zeros in their bank accounts that if they were to just put a portion of their money, they all tithe 10%, our national debt could be gone, you know? Um, so there's that. We had talked about probably back in when we were talking about, Trump coming back in the race, looking like he'd be the Republican candidate. And we had kind of talked a little bit also. I know you and I had talked shortly after Biden had won last time, and Trump's time's over. It's kind of where we're going. We're looking at what's going on in the Middle East. We, kind of said in one of the episodes that, even if Trump got elected, Trump's main focus really, and I think the positive part of his administration is going to be focusing on domestic policy and domestic issues here in the United States. I think Trump's ability to try to fix what we've already talked about as God's timetable already unwinding. I think the ability of seeing Trump try to go fix that is really not going to be in the best interest, one, of the United States or this administration, because I don't think at this point there is anything Trump's going to be able to do on the international scale that's going to stop what is already going on in the Middle East. I do know Trump recently had said, or had an article out, was it maybe a week ago, that he's not planning to intervene in the situation in Syria. He's not planning to intervene in, I think, one or two other things over there in the Middle East. He'd like to see peace in the Middle East, but it seemed that that was not going to be his main focus when he gets in. His main focus seems to be to clean up this country. So when we look at that, and we look at the powerhouse that America used to be on the global scale, I think as we move forward with this administration and as we move forward with the timetable, I think that we've talked about as God's timetable, I don't think really America's going to have any say, any input, or any ability to stop what's going on over there in the Middle East at this point. Even with, the stroke of a pen, I would think one of the first few things Trump would do is reinstate the pipelines, reopen the things that are going to help us here, because when we look domestically, we are a disaster. We're paying gas prices that are almost three times as much nationally than what they were when he left office. What I'm paying for groceries is outrageous. I think that should be and probably will be his focus. I think America's involvement in Middle Eastern affairs, as far as that international perspective goes, I really don't think we're going to have much of an impact Would that be a fair assessment?
I think it's right on the Middle East. I would say even probably not more than that, even though the chaos in Syria will be something that has a potential of becoming something that requires a lot of attention and focus. I would say it would only become that is if the only way that's going to happen is if something like ISIS reemerges in Syria. I think the likelihood of that is down. The interesting thing is that Israel has strengthened its position in Israel or in Syria. Turkey has strengthened its position in Syria. So, it's like there was a vacuum, of course, when Assad falls, and now, all of the former opposition parties or groupings are endeavoring to try to coalesce and come together and take care of things. But already, Turkey and Israel are stepping forward to fill some of those gaps. The Kurds are taking care of their own affairs to get into a place. So as long as something like ISIS doesn't arise, I think that he won't. He's not going to bother with that because it's just not going to end up being important.
Well, just was it three? What are we, the 20th? So just 3, 4 days ago, they're calling Turkey's leader the new Putin as he's eyeing power in Syria as Israel watches nervously. He said if Turkey decides to arm the rebel forces, it's unclear how Israel will respond and whether it will be able to thwart the transfer of American-backed weapons. So it looks to me like he's going in and he's going to kind of try to take over Syria and have that influence being backed by not only Turkey but also Qatar as well. And again, President Trump's made it very clear he's going to stay out of that mess and let that handle itself. But their president wants to fill that vacuum that's there and try to use that as a power piece to, it sounds to me, to, from his perspective, get rid of Israel or have a major play on impacting Israel's continued mobility as it expands itself, obviously north through Gaza, has cleaned out Gaza, moving itself and even further up. It seems to me that he is looking forward to or looking for a way to cause Israel to be halted.
Well, it's a match right now, isn't it? I mean, between particularly Turkey and Israel. Iran has been spanked, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah.
Um, and with the fall of Assad in Syria, there's just a whole lot to the infrastructure coming from that direction that just isn't there anymore. So,
And
um,
they're having major energy crisis issues right now. I mean, they're
yeah,
shutting
yeah.
universities, college. I mean, they can't even keep their daily electricity going. It's like rolling
Kind of.
electric power outages here like we had in California. I mean, it's a disaster.
Well, that's kind of scary in a way though, because when the folks that actually are leading that country are a little unhinged, like that's what I would classify the Ayatollahs as a little unhinged. You just it's like cornering a wildcat. You just don't know what kind of snarling and scratching is going to come out of that. It could be a very dangerous situation. So it is a dangerous situation. I think Trump will concentrate on trying to find a way to taking out the uncertainty around the Ukraine. I think that's an international thing he has to do. And then I think the big international thing that he isn't going to be able to avoid, no matter how bad things, how bad the situation domestically is, China has got to be dealt with. There's been it seems to me, a relative disengagement. I mean, China's running around the Philippine waters anyhow, running around the waters of Vietnam, running, into even pushing things as far down as Indonesia, plus all the other things that China does internally, and the pressures that they exert on Africa and mining there. It's just something has to be done, right?
And the continued threat that they're still going to take over Taiwan, which I
Well,
sit here and
that's the
I
powder keg, right?
yeah, and I sit here and wonder, is it something they're going to do right before or right after Trump becomes president? because I think that the way it would I mean, there'd be two different, obviously, totally two different administrative perspectives here. I mean, you've got the Biden administration that's got like, the cat, the tail between their legs at some things, and I think would just be like that, no big deal, it's not our problem. Or maybe they would step up and do something. And when Trump was in, he was much more forceful and much more seemed to offer threats that at least had some kind of backing, or at least if there was no backing, it came across as if if you do, you will get spanked, you know. So you
Yeah.
have to wonder how far will they push it. And I know we've talked on the show several times about, really China's move is probably going to be totally hinged on what happens over in the Middle East there. I mean, if we've got, Russia who is withdrawing from Syria, and Russia, although they did
They're
welcome,
probably out
they
now. I mean, they were moving fast.
and and of course the instability in the Ukraine, if Trump does come in and force them out. I mean, Russia, what do they got left to do but to join Turkey and Iran in a potential invasion or supportive invasion of Arab forces going in and trying to obliterate Israel. And if that happens, then China's got the green light because nobody's going to be paying attention to them. And by the time we realize what China's done as far as maybe taking over Taiwan and a few other areas, it'll be done.
It's
It'll
hard,
be like it'll be like a North
I
Korea invasion, really. It'll be like they're there,
well,
they're done. Here we go.
well, they may make a move on Korea. I mean, it's obvious that they don't want anyone's voice to be, dictatorial or actually the thing that is developing policy. They don't want anyone's voice in Japan, Korea, the Philippines, Vietnam, even I would say in places like Tajikistan and Kazakhstan, and I just see China just trying to develop hegemony, across that entire part of the world. And I mean, they're even fighting with India,
Well, they've been
which,
fighting with India for years over the Kashmir,
yeah,
between them, Pakistan, and India. And I've always said in my geography classes when I teach, or if we're talking about world history or something, and that topic comes up, I would say, you watch one day China's coming and is going to take it all, because Pakistan and India combined do not have enough nuclear power, let alone manpower to stop China from doing that. So at some point in time, that will probably all belong to China. And why would they stop at just that?
well, I think that they'll stop at a little bit more than that. Well, they'll stop at where they're going to stop at in that area, mainly because it is what is readily manageable. But the thing that they'll end up gaining from having that is that they're going to have the voice in the world like America had after World War II. I mean, their voice is going to be the one that matters in South America, in Africa, I would say even in Europe, to tell you the honest God truth. They have just so insidiously infused themselves into the political and economic spheres in all of those places that they're wiser and more inscrutable than American business ever has been in trying to wheedle in and get a seat at the table in all of these places. So I think Trump will have a necessity of getting involved with foreign policy. I think the major aspect of that, the quickest thing, is going to be trying to tamp down the fires in the Ukraine.